Hi, I'm Mason Marangella from Vertex Effects, aka The Rig Doctor, and as 2021 comes to a close, I want to review some of my favorite products that released this year and maybe see if some of these might be able to end up on your rig. Let's do it. Now, 2021, I can say as a manufacturer, was one of the most challenging years out there. With supply chain issues and demand at an all-time high, it's been very difficult to meet the needs of all of our customers. Now, a lot of companies have pivoted in ways to make sure that their customers still get the great products that they know and expect from those manufacturers, and I think a lot of people really brought out some of their best stuff this year. And I want to go through manufacturers that are not just in the pedal world, but also accessories and other things that are sort of auxiliary to being a guitar player or a bass player, and really talk about products that really exceeded my expectations and I think are really great, and I think could be wonderful fits into your rigs. Now, if there's anything in 2021 that we don't mention that you think is worth talking about, I would love to hear from you in the comments below as we go, so go ahead and give us your feedback as we go through each one of these items, and again, put the items that you think maybe were some of the best releases of the year. So first, in the early part of this year, Walrus released their first amplifier simulator that not only has multiple different amp simulations, but also cabinet simulation and IRs, and this was the ACS1. Now this comes in right at $399.99, and of course its nearest competitor would be the Strymon Iridium. And as I've said in one of our other videos where I talked about some of my favorites, this is probably one of the best out there. And the main reason why I prefer this to all other cabinet simulators and amplifier simulators that are out there is that it allows you to have two different amplifiers, one on the left channel and one on the right channel. And by doing this, it allows you to have a lot more flexibility. Rarely do we ever play with stereo amps that are exactly the same. I know most of the times I'm either mixing Fender and Marshall or Fender and Vox. I like how those two different frequencies that are exaggerated in those two amps complement each other. It allows me to be able to do that and have dissimilar cabinets between the two of them. That flexibility is just absolutely fantastic, and it's even more compact than most of its competitors out there. By far, this is my favorite amp simulation out there that is a digital recreation of some of my favorite analog amps, and I've done the side-by-side comparisons. I have vintage Voxes and vintage Plexis and vintage Fenders, and it really holds up favorably, especially when you're listening back through your monitors or IEMs. It's very, very close. Now, another amp simulation and cabinet simulation and really just an everything simulation all in one that came out this year that I think we have to talk about is the Neural DSP. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this product because it's certainly one of the most popular products of the year, but I think it does hold up just as a giant among all of its other competitors. The Neural DSP Quad Cortex is probably one of the most innovative pieces of gear that has come out this year, I think probably in the last 5 or more years. It certainly takes some of the things that were great about the Line 6 Helix and HX series and just takes it to a whole nother level. And of course, with all the updates that are coming out for this, for the software, you're gonna see just further ability for users to be able to expand this and make it an even better quality product than it began. Now, I think that the amp simulation on this is absolutely incredible. I think some of the pedal simulation where you can sort of profile your pedals, I think is a really effective tool. I think it still has some bugs to be worked out in terms of making it as realistic as possible, and I can just say this from trying to profile some of my own pedals and kind of seeing how they react versus the pedals on their own. But I think overall, this thing is done probably the best job I've heard of any sort of emulation of taking the way that my amp might sound and recreating that as closely as possible and really giving you some of the great things that maybe only were possible before in something like an Axe Effects or a Kemper, and really translating that to something that's super pedalboard friendly, very easy to use in terms of the user interface. And again, as I said, this thing is just going to get better as improvements continue to get made with the software, as users are able to share more of their profiles and be able to get more of a database of different ways to utilize this product or to tweak amp sounds to get the most realistic application in a live or studio context. I can definitely see this thing as becoming even more pervasive, and I think we only got to really see the surface scratched of what's possible here. Again, with the chip shortage and all that stuff, we're not really seeing the full pervasiveness that I think we might have seen in another year if the Neural DSP Quad Cortex had come out then. I definitely see the Quad Cortex as possibly being the pedal that definitely takes over in terms of the cutting edge digital emulation of amplifiers, pedals, and different sorts of cabinets and IR simulations. This is a really, really wonderful product. Pair it with a few of your analog devices that you really, really love, put it in front of an amp, or use the Quad Cortex as its own amplifier. This thing is a total winner. I'm very impressed with it. I think it sounds amazing, and I think for the price point, for people that really want to have a lot of great tones in a small, compact, singular unit, this is definitely probably one of the best multi-effects ever made. I think it will definitely be a historical product. The next product that I really love for 2021 is the RJM Overture. And we did a video a little earlier in the year where we compared several different overdrives that were programmable, and we tried the Chase Bliss and the TC Nova Drive and also the RJM. And although the RJM didn't win this competition, I actually thought that under the fingers, to me at least, seeing all the different pedals as I was playing them, even though it was anonymous to the viewers as we voted on that it felt really, really nice. And I'd say almost better than any of the other ones that we demoed, especially when it came to the overdrive and distortion tones. And this is definitely a product that I see myself implementing into my own rig, mostly because it's quite compact, it has a lot of different classic overdrives inside of it, and it has some really cool options to add boost to those channels, and it's also MIDI controllable. So that is a really, really great product that I think Ron at RJM really knocked out of the park, and I don't think it gets the credit that it deserves. It's one of the best pedals that I've ever played, certainly one of the best programmable overdrives ever made, and I think it is a really great product. Now for the next pedal, it's one of my favorite re-releases or sort of smaller incarnations of a classic pedal, and it's the Nano Memory Man. Now, the Memory Man is something that I always love, and I try to fit it on boards whenever I can. In my original Memory Man unit, as unreliable as it is, I'm always willing to take the risk to use it on a rig because it just makes everything sound so much better. However, the size is so huge that it's pretty incompatible with today's pedal boards. But Ultraphonix has released a smaller version that's the size of kind of a standard sort of bud box size MXR pedal, and it just makes using that type of effect so much more attractive to somebody like me that loves the Memory Man sound, but sometimes the size and the reliability can be prohibitive. Now, the Nano Memory Man, of course, sounds a little bit different than the original, but I think it is an absolute wonderful pedal for the size, definitely delivers on that classic tone, and although it may not be exactly as good as a vintage Memory Man, I think it gets really, really close. And for 200 bucks, I think it's definitely well worth the price of admission if you want to have something that's compact, small, allows you to fit other stuff on your pedal board and still get that beautiful analog delay tone. Now, if I wanted to go Memory Man and even go more extreme, Rockett has released, I think, arguably the best delay of the year. They've worked with Howard, who actually designed the original Memory Man, and recreated as close to a one-to-one version of it that can be made with today's parts. Obviously, the Bucket Brigade chips that were used in the original Memory Man aren't quite the same, even though there are reproductions of it that are available now. But I think they did an absolute wonderful job making the right compensations with these newer Bucket Brigade chips and making it very, very approachable for today's players with the tap tempo and really nailing that original sound of the Memory Man. The Rockett Clockwork is definitely one of my favorite releases of the entire year. It sounds great, slightly bigger than the Ultraphonix Nano, but still very, very small given the number of features that it has and the tone that it delivers. This is something that I'm certainly going to be incorporating on many of my rigs for 2022. Now, it is $399.99, but I can tell you from just the level of involvement of the circuit and the redesigning that this is a bargain price for what it offers. Obviously, if you want to go with something cheaper that offers some of the similar features, you can of course go with the Ultraphonix Nano Memory Man, but there is no tap tempo on that, and it is certainly more abbreviated in terms of its abilities and features to represent the exact original one as closely as possible. I think Rockett has done an amazing job with this. I highly recommend that you check it out. Now, next in terms of pedals, Walrus Audio has done another great job with the Julianna. Now, many of us are familiar with their Julia Chorus, which is a smaller, more abbreviated version. When I was working on a rig earlier this year for Raphael Sadiq, we included one of the Juliannas on it, and I have to say it is an incredible pedal. It sounds so good, reminds me of some of the best qualities of the early Boss choruses, and some of those choruses that were made by Ultraphonix. Really sounds lush, big and fat, and the fact that it's stereo now is just another reason to love it even more. I highly recommend this if you want sort of a vintage chorus that has that sound, but has the modern amenities and reliability of today's pedals. I highly recommend that you check out the Julianna. For 250 bucks for a fully stereo Bucket Brigade chorus, I think that this is definitely something worth checking out. The next pedal is something that I've really been waiting on for years. I always talk about on this channel all the time about my love for the tri-stereo chorus and getting some of those 80s chorus tones that were from the rack unit era. And one of the components of using a tri-stereo chorus is always having some sort of micro pitch that would follow it. Now typically in the rack days it was either an H3000, which is made by Eventide, or an SPX90 made by Yamaha, and this is made to detune or go up in pitch and down in pitch on the left and right. So usually you'd see something around maybe +9, -9, or +11, -11, something around there. This would be used to detune the chorus after the stereo split from the chorus would go into a first stage of a line mixer in a lot of those classic racks. Now there were some ways to sort of emulate that before. Eventide had come out with the pitch factor, which had some of these same features. But Eventide has released the new MicroPitch pedal that not only has the ability to do that detune on left and right, but also offers some of the delay features that were associated with the H3000. And I think that this is one of the coolest pedals that really adds to any chorus. If you really want to go full 80s rack chorus sound, you can get your tri-stereo or stereo chorus emulation and then feed that into the MicroPitch, doing some of that pitch up and down, just a slight amount, you know, somewhere between +9, -9, or +11, -11. And be able to just add that extra width and girth to the chorus sound, get it extra hi-fi, turn up that tone knob a little bit, and get almost those synthesizer pad-esque type of chorus tones. I absolutely love this pedal for that, and I'm already working on incorporating this into my wet dry wet rig so that I can get that full 80s rack and studio chorus tone. For $299, it's the only thing that really does what it does, consolidates it. It has the availability to do MIDI, and it is a really, really great device. I love what it does and just consolidates some of the things that the larger pedals do at a lower price point, like the pitch factor or the H9, and consolidates it to the way that most guitar players would use an H3000 in their studio racks. Now last for guitar pedals, and this is a shameless plug, I have to say that our Ultraphonix Mark II is my favorite overdrive that I've done probably ever. It takes our original Mark I, which was based on the Dunlop Overdrive Special Overdrive channel, and worked very closely with multiple different examples of Dunlop Overdrive Special amplifiers to really recreate not only the sound but the feel of those amplifiers through dissimilar amps. Whether you're using a clean platform that's EL34, EL84, or 6L6, you can really incorporate that D-style sound irrespective of the amp platform. Just put it with your favorite clean amp and you'll be able to get in that Dunlop style zone very, very quickly. We added some new controls for this, gave it a little bit wider range, and just sounds so natural and great. If you want to really see how this sounds in context, our friend Joshua Ray Gooch just did a great video of this. He plays with Shania Twain, but is also a great guitar player and solo artist in his own right. Definitely check out that video if you're interested to see how this thing really sings and comes alive. At $199, it's certainly a bargain price compared to what a Dunlop is going for these days, upwards of 100 grand. So we've talked about some pedals, but I want to get into some more kind of utility stuff. Now, one of these utility pedals is the Dunlop Volume X8. Now, I've always been a huge fan of the Dunlop Volume X series, just in general. I think that the way that they approached this magnetic slider on the pot was a very, very smart idea that reduces friction and it gets rid of some of the common failures that you see in volume pedals where either the string breaks or there's some sort of issue with not having a sealed pot where it gets dirty and starts to create a little bit of noise or sometimes a little bit of crunchiness as you're moving the sweep of the volume pedal up and down. Now these are very well built mechanically, but the challenge for me is that they were either really big or they were too small. And the X8 kind of creates this beautiful intermediary size where it's about 8 inches long, and so it's somewhere between the 11-inch version and the smaller 6-inch version, which I think is a little bit more appropriate for my foot. I wear a size 12, so I'm always struggling to try to use some of those smaller volume pedals and expression pedals. Even though they seem like cool ideas, I just can't resize my foot, even though I can make the pedal board physically smaller. I feel like these fit in a nice intermediary space, and if you're using something that's kind of a mid-size wah, like something like the Exotic wah, this could be a really great pedal to sit side by side it and be able to fit into a small compact area, maybe even one of our pedal boards like a Tour Elite or a Travel Plus or a Tour Compact. These would all be great choices for that cutaway. Gives you some little extra space and a little bit more room to breathe and still have something that's fairly compact. At $119, this is a great pedal, very reliable. I highly recommend the Dunlop Volume X8. Also along the lines of utility pedals, Lehle has released a very cool dual expression pedal. And if you know anything about Lehle's products, they are so well made. They are absolutely bulletproof, very, very high quality. Now, if you're using multiple pedals that have expression jacks on them, you can use the Lehle expression pedal to actually wire in multiple effects at one time and use it as a singular controller. Now, people like Mission Engineering did some cool things where you could switch between one expression pedal into multiple devices, but this incorporates it all into the pedal itself, so you're able to have this flexibility to go between different effects and use this expression as a dual expression pedal, expressing multiple different things at the same time. And is extremely compact, again, extremely well built. And if you need an expression pedal and you have multiple pedals that allow that function, it's certainly a no-brainer to add to your pedal board, and it's gonna last for a lifetime. At $259.99, it's certainly well worth it. I highly recommend the Lehle dual expression pedal. Now, also from Lehle, another great utility piece is their new version of the passive splitter, the P-Split. They have a consolidated version now, which is even more compact than the original, and I use that splitter all the time, especially when we're running multiple amps or we're setting up some things for a demo in our studio. We're using the P-Split almost on a weekly basis, and this just takes the great things about the P-Split. It just makes it even smaller, more compact, and more friendly to use. Doesn't require any power, and is probably one of the best designed transformers in the business. If you need any sort of isolation, whether that's for a stereo amp, wet dry, or wet dry wet rig, this is certainly something that I would highly recommend using in the system. You can incorporate it on your pedal board, but it's even more effective the closer that it gets to the input of the amp. So if you can put it right next to the input of one of your stereo amps, let's say, and you want to use that to isolate that amp galvanically from the other amp, have an ability to control the phase so that you can make sure that the amps have the right polarity against each other. This is something that you definitely want to check out. Now let's get into switchers. Now, microprocessors have been in short supply all this year, but there's one company that released a switcher this year that I think is maybe one of the best ones ever made. As you know from watching this channel, we always talk about Musicom Lab in Korea as being one of the most innovative, great companies that's making amazing switchers. Now with Musicom Lab releasing their newest switcher, the EFX LE-MkVI, it is one of the best switchers I've ever seen. Makes all the updates and improvements that people have been asking for as far as having a USB capable ability to update. It's got a great programming system, has incredible buffers, has great isolation, has an isolated output that's using a high quality transformer. All the buffers meet my specs for recommended specifications for the input and output buffers. It has 11 loops, it is incredibly compact, and it is unbelievably only $750. I don't know how they're able to incorporate so many features with that number of loops, with the quality of buffers and the isolation transformers for that little money. Its nearest competitor in terms of the number of loops and capability is almost twice the cost that this is. Now, even though this has 11 loops and only one stereo loop, you can utilize 2 loops to create an additional stereo loop if you want. And if you're going to use a wet dry wet with this, you could always use the parallelizer, which is an add-on to this, which is also MIDI controllable and can be incorporated into the switcher, so that you can have all of your wet effects with the ability to route those in parallel with a dry mix to add on to this to get in an additional 3 loops, again, all fully in stereo. I think that this is an amazing piece of gear. It is a great switcher, and I can't wait to get one of these and build a rig on it for 2022. I highly recommend Musicom Lab. I think the products are insanely well built and really, really sound amazing. You should definitely check out this switcher if you need something that has at least 11 loops and gives you all those great buffers, isolation, and is just, again, rock solid, built like a tank. So that was my rundown of the best products for 2021. Again, all in my opinion, but I'd love to hear from you about any products you think I might have missed or overlooked in the comments below. And tell me what you think about some of my picks. Do you agree or disagree with some of them? Again, I'd love to hear from you in the comments as well. And if you like what you saw here and you want to support us even further, there's many ways you can do that. An easy free way is just to listen to our podcast. We have a great podcast. It's available on all the common podcatchers. Or if you want to support us beyond that, we also offer Patreon subscriptions that start as low as $1 a month or $12 a year and go upwards from there. And you have options for private consulting, one-on-one with me, and Zoom chats and things of that nature. Or if you want to support us, you can always go over to vertexeffects.com, buy one of our pedals there. My favorite pedal that I made this year, the Ultraphonix Mark II, is available there, as well as all of our other offerings and pedal boards. Or head over to therigdr.com, where we offer pedal boards, supplies for building your pedal board, our Velcro, our signature power grip, all different things that you're going to need in order to build the pedal board of your dreams. It's all available there, so definitely do check that out as well. And until next time, I am Mason Marangella from Vertex Effects, and that was our wrap up of 2021. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.